here we are in the rear of the Insight, Generation 1, 2000 to 2006. And here's the instructional video on how to install the grid charger wiring harness. First of all, we'll start with the rear hatch emptied with just the carpet, and that will be the first thing that gets removed in the process here. So not much to it, just pull it on out. In the trunk compartment area, there's also some carpet in there as well. Going to want to go ahead and pull that out as well. I don't see any reason why the spare tire and jack and tools need to come out at this point, but some of you might be equipped with a factory CD changer. That should not get in the way, but if, like this one, you have an aftermarket that someone may have put in that area over there, you might want to think about taking that out, because that may get in the way as well. A couple of tools that you'll need is a 10mm ratchet, or some kind of a electric tool. For one, I use a Ryobi 18-volt lithium that helps speed the process up and definitely help with the video too. You also want appropriate Phillips head, either bit or screwdriver, in order to get to some of these Phillips head screws that are in here. And for the battery cover itself, you're going to be looking at a Torx bit, number 30, T30. As you can see, it's got a 6-sided starlight pattern on it. They put those screws in there to try to keep the end consumer out of the compartment there. Of course, it's dangerous if you're not careful and know what you're doing in there. So without further ado, we'll get to opening up the compartment. First of all, towards the right here, where this CD changer is on this particular car, there's an aluminum plate that obviously needs to come out, and we'll be taking out this 10mm bolt over here in the corner, and there's a Phillips head and another behind the carpet here, another 10mm as well. And then of course there is a plastic pressed in fastener there that could be taken out with the appropriate tool from the local Autoport store, or what I found works is these wire cutters. As long as you're careful not to snap it off, you can usually slide this into that spot. And see if I can get you on the video here a little bit closer. Yeah, you can usually slide these in here underneath, and if you're careful not to clamp them too hard, you can usually pull that out of there, like so. So over to this piece of aluminum we were talking about earlier. We've selected the proper Phillips head bit. Can easily test it in these holes here and make sure there's not too much free play in there, and let you know that you have the right size bit. And you can go ahead and take this out of there. This one's really loose in this particular case. For the CD changer on this one, I think I'm going to keep this on here for now, so I'm not sure if this will all come out in one piece. This is not how the factory sets the car up, so I'm not going to try disassembling it at this point, because I think it'll come out without removing that. But once you're done with that Phillips head, you can move on to the 10mm. In my case, I'm using a 10mm swivel ratchet on the end of this drill here. It's a little bit more quick. You can see we take out that 10mm there. Just one hiding behind the carpet back over here. I'll get that ratchet on top of there. everything that's holding it in place here. Like I said, that CD changer I thought might come out with it, and that is in fact the case. After we get this aluminum piece removed from the side of the trunk area there, there's 3 more 10mm bolts on the back side of the battery compartment cover here. Work on taking those 3 out here. Careful not to lose any of your bolts. So that's that. Should be everything that's holding the back of the battery cover on. From here we'll move on to an important part of this process here. Of course, these 2 10mm bolts right in the middle, covering a important switch. To get those 2 guys out of there, you want to go ahead and take a look inside here. You'll see there's the main power switch for the battery pack itself. You'll want to remove this little red safety switch in here. It's designed to keep you from flipping the switch, but we'll have to pop that thing out of here. There we go. Popped it off. We're going to move this to the off position, and that's going to disable the battery pack from giving you a good jolt if you touch the wrong thing. And from there, we'll move this battery cover out of the way. Make sure not to lose our 10mm bolts. While we have the 10mm socket still, let's go ahead and knock out the rest of these 10mm bolts here. Counted 8 those 10mm. When you got those out, gather them up and make sure you hold on to those, keep them in a safe place here. Next, we'll work on the final Torx bolts. We'll need that special T30 bit. I'm gonna go ahead and insert that into the drill. Careful not to work it too hard, because it will definitely strip out these screws if on disassembly or assembly you're giving it a little bit too much torque. But if you got the right size bit, you shouldn't have much of a problem. Just be careful tightening them on when we put it back together here. Got 3 on each side. Those 6. Put those in a safe place. Careful not to drop them. One of the last stages in the disassembly of the compartment top is there are a few more hidden 10mm bolts. There are some of those plastic fasteners. The one that we took out on this left or rightmost panel. One of the first steps that we did along the way. So there's 3 more. We're going to get in there and remove those so we have access to those 10mm bolts. I find if you go underneath the carpet, you'll have less chance of doing any damage to these fasteners, and it helps to pull them out. So I'm going to take my pliers and just pull up underneath, pop those guys out of there. 1, 2, 3. Last one. So we got those 3, put them in a safe place, and you'll expose the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 10mm bolts that we'll go ahead and remove at this point. Switch back over to my 10mm socket here. will be the 10 millimeter bolts. Move them to the side here and sure to keep them in a safe place. And for this last retaining bolt here, I have a 5/32 Allen head key that just so happens to fit in there. And once you loosen that up, you should be able to get that out by hand here. With that off, the cover should be able to be removed. Put that aside safely. You'll see some protective insulative foam here that can be pulled straight up and out. Remember the orientation, how that goes, and that will expose all the areas of the pack that we need access to. This next part of the video is going to involve wiring the harness and the electrical connections, and definitely part of the process that you want to put on some rubber gloves just for good measure here. Should also be using a voltmeter. Doesn't have to be an overly expensive one. This one in particular is made by Centec, and it is available from Harbor Freight for anywhere between $4 and $7 or $8, depending on what kind of sale they got going on at the time. But just need some kind of indication that the battery voltage is safe to be working with. Up here is the negative terminal for the battery main contactor from the IMA motor, and to the battery itself. That's where we're going to put the prong for the negative. And if we reach underneath this aluminum cross member here, there's a pre-charge contactor with a white wire with orange sheathing around it. You want to go to the right of this black harness and touch this metal prong here. You'll see that voltmeter jump to close to 20 volts and then immediately discharge whatever it was holding in there. So now it's safe to operate, as safe as could be considering what we're working with here. And there's no voltage in that resistor at this point. So what we'll do is we're going to put rubber gloves on first, but I'm not that bright, so I'm going to reach my hand back here and grab a hold of this black connector here. What we're going to do is we're going to push on this this little black prong on the inside, which moves a pin that unlocks it from this pre-charged contactor, and we're going to pull it straight off, and that'll give us access to the pre-charge connector that we need access to with our harness here. Next we'll go ahead and get a hold of our 10 millimeter that we were using along the way here, and we're going to stick that on the negative terminal and loosen that up just a bit. That's all we need. And we're going to move over here to our step drill bit, also available from Harbor Freight, where I'm going to use it in this Ryobi drill here. Make sure that we can see this. Yeah, this in particular is where I'm going to locate the connection for the wiring harness. I'm just going to pick a spot over here where I have plenty of clearance and go ahead and start drilling. As you can see, the aluminum is really soft and it's not very thick, so you should be able to easily fit right through there. We're at about a 1-inch hole now. Let's see if that's going to work here. Stick our wiring through the hole, and you'll see that's where we end up. So we'll have plenty of room to drill our pilot holes to connect our charging port, and on one of the holes you want to put this this strap underneath before you put the screw in there, so when you open the dust cover here, it'll have something to hold on to where it won't get lost. As far as routing the wiring, once you get through the case here, I mean, you can go underneath the fan here and around, and I like just going right around and underneath here. There's you'll notice a female end and a male end, and there are a couple of versions of harnesses that we have. Some of them are integrated splitter. This one in particular has separate wiring and a female and male end. What we'll do is we're going to take the female end and we're going to run it over here to this pre-charge contactor. We're going to stick it on that pin that we just took the other one off of, and route this negative lead underneath. This one is fork shaped, and it'll fit right underneath that negative lead that you took off and loosen this bolt on. So we'll go ahead and grab our 10mm so we can snug that up here. And holding that in place while we tighten. Definitely something that you want to make sure is tight. You definitely don't want to strip it out, but you definitely want it tight enough where it's factory spec and safe. Now back down to this positive connection here, we're going to take this contactor circuit here, the female that used to go on the pre-charge circuit. We're going to put it on the male end of our charging harness here, and you'll notice there's a little hole in the middle of that male plug there. That is so that this harness can actually lock on there, and you'll hear it click when you've inserted it to the proper depth, and that way it will not pull back out again. Give it a test here and make sure it's locked and not going to pull off of there. If you have trouble getting it to lock, go ahead and flip that male end over and try the orientation the other way. Definitely a job for someone with smaller hands than I have. Got that in place. Click, locked into place, and there's the basic wiring for the harness. I should have included some zip ties to keep things nice and tidy. A little slack there. Probably not entirely necessary, but if you wanted to put some zip ties in there to snug everything into place. keep things from moving around. It's definitely something, use your discretion. Of course, this is the fuse. If it ever, for whatever reason, stops charging, I would definitely check the fuse here. Might have been some kind of surge that has popped the fuse. Haven't had one pop as of yet on any of the chargers that we have, but it's there for a reason. And if that does happen, definitely checking the fuse is one of the first steps in the process there. So outside of these pilot holes and using the supplied screws to attach the harness and the strap for the dust cover here. Reinstallation is reverse or removal, and if you have any trouble, please send us an email or give us a call, and we'll see if we can walk you through the process.